Welcome to your laboratory of PLSC 795, Field Design 1. This is Anna Heilman speaking. Today, we are going to be learning some few tricks in Excel. Please join me. The next trick that I want to teach you today is about the use of pivot tables. So pivot tables can be used for several things. They can be used for aggregating information, but they can also be used to transform your tables. Not necessarily for aggregating them, but transforming them. You can also utilize them for making maps. If you have the coordinates for the field, in this case we have the range and the row. So why don't we start now? The first thing that I want you to do is, again, always selecting your data. Once you select your data with Ctrl A, please go into the Insert tab and then Insert Pivot Table. There is also an option on the right-hand side that is called Insert Pivot Chart. For the moment, let's start with the pivot tables. So this will bring the pop-up menu, and it will ask you if you would like to put that pivot table into a new worksheet. I usually like to do that. There's people that might want to put it in the existing worksheet, but I like to work in different sheets. So you can click OK after here, and this is the moment in which we are going to start building that pivot table. So if I, for example, click out of this particular box, you can see that all the menus on the right hand side disappear. But if I want them to bring them up again, just click in that table with that box. The next thing that we are going to do is, you can see that we have all those menus with all our columns in the right hand side, and I want you to drag and drop some particular fields. The first one that I want you to pick is the range column, and then I want you to put it in rows. And the next one is going to be the row, and you are going to put it in columns. If for some reason you think like, that's not the names that we want to have, initially we have changed those names to maybe range, we changed it by row, and row, we changed it by column. What you can do is you can go back to your original data and then just change the names in there. So I want to change the range for row, and to see it more as a matrix, and the P row as column. If we go back to that sheet 4, what you can do is go ahead, click again inside of this particular table, and then now you can see like they are still showing the same name. What we can do is go back into the Data tab, and what we can do is to refresh all. When we refresh all, that immediately it's going to disappear the information that I brought to those row and columns, but now we have the correct name. So let's bring row into rows, and let's bring column into column. And the first thing that I want to show you is how to build that particular field or map in utilizing these fields in here. So please go ahead and drag the plot into the values. So we have row into rows, columns into columns, and then we have values. The next thing that I want you to do is, you can see in here that we have the first range or the first row that is 18, and then the last one is 22. I want you to go into the particular option in here and then sort largest to the smallest. So this is our map in the field. This is the way that it looked. I want you to remove grand totals, and I want you to remove this information in here because we don't really need it. So to remove this information, you go into the Design tab, and then you are going to say Remove Grand Totals for rows and columns. And there we go. Here we have our map. Now, the next things that I want you to do is, please select all this table in here. I want you to go to Home and kind of format it a little bit, bring those values into the center. And then I want you to also kind of like make everything a little bit prettier. And once you do that, I want you to copy all this table and paste it immediately down with Control V. And once you do that, we are going to start changing this particular second pivot table. And instead of doing a plot, please take the plot out and bring yield. At this moment, we are having a table that contains all the plot numbers in the field, and then we are also seeing the values for yield. I want you to use the conditional formatting. Go home, and you will do conditional formatting, color scales, and you will use that first scale in there. So as you can see, the particular plot that it's in here, that is a 2717, had a lower yield of 77. There is another one in here, that is the 2757 plot, has a yield of 81.5. So this is a quick and dirty look of your field, and it's a nice way of kind of like exploring your data and see if there are some trends in the field happening. So for this particular case, I am just showing you that the information that we are using in here, we are not necessarily summarizing. This is not a sum, because if you can see, we are utilizing the data for the rows and columns. So what we are bringing is actually the real value that it's in our table, in the data table. So if you, for example, see the column 20 with row 21, let's go on into our data. Column 20, row 21. Column 20, let's filter that out, 20 with row 21. So you can see that the yield for that particular one, it's in here. So then let's go and see what happened in our pivot table. 20 with 21, the value is 112.1. And in here, there is 112.1. So as you can see, many people might get confused about this. It might say like, oh, but that is a sum. It's not really a sum. When we are utilizing like the coordinates for row and column to producing a map, we are actually using the data and the actual data point. Once this is being done, you can utilize it for any other of the traits that we have in here. So I encourage you to go and explore and do your own maps with your own data. The next thing that we are going to do is please name the sheet number 4 or the sheet number 3 that you have, and I will call it the pivot map, pivot underscore map, and click enter. The next thing that we are going to do further than this is kind of like producing an entry list, and this would be a very simple task to do utilizing our data. So please go ahead into the data tab, make sure that you remove this particular filter, and then I want you to select all the information, then go back to the insert, and let's insert a pivot table, then into a new worksheet, click OK. And then what I want you to do now is to bring the name and the entry, both of those fields. I want you to put entry first in the rows, and then I want you to bring the name of the variety. Now you can see that we have that number 1 is lazy, but the format is not my favorite. So please go ahead and go into the design tab, then go and use the report layout. And that report layout, please use the repeat all item labels. Start from the show in tabular form, and then report repeat all item labels. Then make sure that you remove the grand totals for rows and columns, and remove the subtotals. So now we have our entry list, and we can see that lazy is number 1. And now, as you can see, we have built our entry list, and then we can identify the entry number that corresponds one-to-one to each one of these varieties in this experiment. The next thing that I want you to do is please go and put the name in that sheet 5 that should be called entry list. and put an underscore in between if you want or not. Thank you for attending our class today. I hope that what I teach you today was valuable for you, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.